A couple of Toronto Blue Jays have spoken out about the 2024 season and about their upcoming roles, and I'm talking about Isiah-Kiner Falefa and Kevin Kiermaier. They had a lot to say about what attracted them to Toronto and what they can expect from the Toronto Blue Jays this season. So we'll have that and much more coming up on Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, the Blue Jays have made a couple of moves this offseason. They brought Kevin Kiermaier back, and they acquired Isiah-Kiner Falefa. Now, this is an attractive situation for the both of them because they believe that they're going to get a lot of playing time, and they think the Blue Jays have a very good team. Now, one of those things I believe is true. I think the Blue Jays have a very good team, although I'm not quite sure about what their roles are going to be in 2024. For Kevin Kiermaier, I believe that he will get a lot of playing time, and I believe that he will be the everyday center fielder for the most part. But when it comes to IKF, where does he slot in? Is he a super utility man and he plays 4 or 5 times a week in different positions? Or is he the everyday third baseman? We're not quite sure. But he expects to play a lot in his time here in Toronto. But Nick, these are the two acquisitions that the Jays have made thus far in the offseason, and they had some things to say about what's going to be coming up this year.
Yeah, they finally spoke out, and kind of like Kevin Kiermaier did last year, it seems like IKF is going to have a bigger role than we may have initially thought. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll leave up to you. But a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 12,000. About 70% of you guys who are watching right now aren't subscribed, so scroll down, and if you aren't already, hit that button. It means a lot to me and Peter. Now, Peter, we'll start with IKF's comments, and then we'll get into Kevin Kiermaier's. And Kevin Kiermaier's comments are actually very interesting, specifically regarding, obviously, his role, but as well as the market. It did not shape up the way he expected it going in, but Isiah-Kiner Falefa, we've had a few days now, about a week to marinate this signing, and he basically said that he wasn't sure what to expect in free agency, but was pleasantly surprised, saying, quote, "I wasn't really expecting as many teams to call. I was kind of overwhelmed, and it made me feel really good." Now, Peter, if you rewind to before Christmas time, I believe it was Robert Murray on a podcast, basically said that as much as Jays fans were upset about, the Jays giving Isiah a second year, giving him $15 million, he had a ton of interest in free agency, much more than Kevin Kiermaier, which is an interesting thing. And I think it's because of his versatility. But Peter, a lot of teams were trying to get Isiah-Kiner Falefa.
Yeah, and he's a good player. He does a lot of things very well. He's just not the flashiest, and he's not going to hit 25 home runs for you. You know that. It doesn't matter how much playing time he gets. He's not going to hit 300. He's not going to hit 25 home runs. He's not going to drive in 80 runs in a season. It's just not the kind of player that he is. But yes, it is that versatility that makes him so attractive to other teams. He can play shortstop, third base. He was even a catcher for a little while in Texas, so he can play all over the diamond, play some outfield as well, and he can help out this Blue Jays team. There's no doubt about it. And if you look at the advanced numbers later on in the year for the New York Yankees, he was one of their best hitters. It's not saying much because they missed the playoffs and they looked like a shell of themselves, but he was one of the more reliable options in that lineup, and he is only 28 years old. So he's still got a little bit of juice left in the tank. He's a good MLB player, not a great MLB player, and I think that's what has fans kind of up in arms here because he's not the flashiest signing, but he is going to help. He's definitely going to help. And we said the same thing last year with Kevin Kiermaier. Not sure how we feel about him in an everyday role. How much is he going to produce? Is he going to be able to stay healthy? And we were pleasantly surprised with the output that we got from his offensive side of things. Like he had one of the best offensive seasons of his career. Yep. But it still amounted to less than 10 home runs. It still amounted to not many runs driven in. Like, it was great. You got the most that you possibly could have gotten out of Kevin Kiermaier, but it just wasn't enough offensive output for the position that he was playing. I know center field is glove primary and then everything else follows suit, but you needed a little bit more offense from that number 9 spot, and you just didn't get it. Now, same thing with Isiah-Kiner Falefa. He's going to hit in the bottom of your order. You're probably not going to get much offense out of him, so you got to compensate in other areas, and that's up to Ross Atkins to figure out.
Yeah, you made a very good point. Kevin Kiermaier actually speaks about that. Before we get into that, just a couple of other things regarding his role. He said, "I know the offseason isn't done. I know there's still going to be moves, and he's ready to play everywhere." And then, like you said in the intro, the city was attracted to him. I'm sure the money and the term was very attractive to him, and he wants to be a part of something special because he thinks that they can make a big push in 2024. And, I mean, it makes sense for Isiah-Kiner Falefa, too. Ross Atkins loves these versatile players. I mean, you mentioned it. has never had a 700 OPS. His best season was in the COVID-shortened year back in 2020. But honestly, at this point, I'm just excited. I'm going to root for him. There's no point of hating on him. I'm just going to hope he does well and hope that he excels in whatever role he is. And I would not be surprised, Peter, if he ends up being our third baseman on opening day, as wild as that sounds. It seems like that is a possibility, albeit not one that a lot of Jays fans necessarily want. Now, let's touch on Kevin Kiermaier a bit. He basically goes on to say that he's going to have a huge year. He's grateful to be back with the Blue Jays and that he was very surprised by his second free agent experience because a year ago he was a free agent when he signed with the Blue Jays, and he said not many teams were interested, which caught him off guard. And he basically calls the Jays' struggles at the plate a wake-up call and that they're going to hopefully bounce back. And he wants to say, I want to have the best offensive year of my whole career. I want to win another Gold Glove. I want to unlock my potential, specifically power. And Peter, I think the reason he's saying that, it's a much different quote than he gave last year where he was saying that he wants to be the best number 9 hitter. Clearly that doesn't allow him to get paid. Not many teams wanted him because obviously phenomenal glove first guy. He hit well for his, given his age and all these things and his expectations, but the power wasn't there, and teams want, especially at this point of the MLB and how far it's come, they need power, especially from the center field position. And he changed his mindset now. He's no longer trying to be the best 9 hitter. He's trying to be a bit more of a power hitter, so he actually gets paid after this year on a 1-year deal.
Well, I don't know how successful he's going to be in doing that. What he does is a lost start. I mean, a guy that can run like the wind, that plays platinum glove defense in center field, and that'll hit for some contact. That won't really blow you away with his power. We don't have many of those guys in the league anymore, and that's maybe why he didn't have that much interest when it came to free agency. I do expect him to have another good season, and he was the least of their problems last year. Like we can get that out of the way. He drove in their only run in the playoffs, which is again not saying much, but he did that, and he came up with some big hits in the regular season. He came up with some massive moments. You remember earlier in the year that bases clearing triple against the Los Angeles Angels. Then later on in the year, he made some clutch, had some clutch ABs. Like he's a good guy to have in your locker room, and he's playoff tested, he's battle tested, and he's clutch. He's clutch. Talk about his lack of power all you want, but he came up with some big moments last year for the Blue Jays. So sure, I would like to see some more power in the center field position next year, or even in left field, considering that Dalton Varsho probably would have moved over, but you didn't get that now. You didn't get that, so hopefully you could get some more out of Kevin Kiermaier and squeeze every last bit of baseball that he has left in him.
Yes, he's not necessarily young, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm not super excited about the moves they made. I don't mind Isiah-Kiner Falefa, but Peter, I literally remember when we were talking about the Ohtani stuff, and Ben Nicholson-Smith kind of hinted at the backup plan being players like Kiner Falefa instead of those guys like Cody Bellinger. But it is what it is at this point. The market really hasn't been too crazy. We knew it was going to be a pretty dry offseason. I think the Ohtani stuff kind of hyped up our expectations. But one final quote about playing time for Kiner Falefa before I wrap up is that he had other opportunities to sign a shortstop at center field, but he wants to embrace his role with the Blue Jays and to do the dirty work to set up the Stars to do their thing. And that kind of ultimately leads to the main point of all this, which is if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. goes back to what he was in 2021, the Jays are set up to be World Series contenders. If he doesn't, the Jays are set up not to be contenders like they were last year. So any quick final thoughts on that before I wrap up? Hopefully Ross will make a move soon. I suspect I'm making a prediction here on the video. I suspect a Jock Peterson signing by January 10th.
Now, I'm not piggybacking Vladdy's success on other guys, but let's look at who else was in that lineup that year. Marcus Semien set a record for most home runs by a second baseman. Teoscar Hernandez drove in 120 runs, and he hit almost 30 home runs, and he hit 295. Same thing with Bo Bichette. Drove in 100 plus, hit 295. So he had so much protection in that lineup, which makes it hurt even more because that Blue Jays team was special. And if they were at home, maybe we'd be talking about a different story here, but it is what it is. Didn't happen. But look how much insulation he had in that lineup. Now you bring in a guy like Isiah-Kiner Falefa, who's never had an OPS above 700. Is he expected to make things easier for Vladdy? Is he expected to give him some more pitches to hit? I don't think so. So, sure, you could bring in all the pieces you want. You could bank on the bounce backs all you want, but you need a big-time bat. That's been established here. Now, you cheaped out in the third base department. You brought Kevin Kiermaier back. You essentially cheaped out in the outfield department as well, which was another position of need. So now you got to go big or go home with the DH position and get a guy who's going to be that middle of the order bat and properly insulate Vladdy and give him those good pitches to hit. And hopefully get his confidence going in the right direction.
Hopefully that's JD Martinez, but it might end up being Jock Peterson, which would be a bit of a disappointment, but we'll leave that in case it does happen, but rumors starting to circulate there. But that'll wrap up the video. Hopefully they do make one of those moves soon. If you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now, and we will see you tomorrow.